All right. I think this is. I'm going to end with one more question. I think we should both talk about this because I think it's a really interesting question. So this is not cold email; it's cold messaging on LinkedIn or Facebook or any platform for that matter. What's your take on that? Like, what's the right approach to cold email on LinkedIn? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think that when you send people messages on LinkedIn, again, you need to be aware and in tune with the context of the environment, right? So, who is the person I'm trying to get in touch with? How do they use LinkedIn, right? Do they use it mainly to make new connections and to broaden their network? Do they use it to get business stuff? Or is this mainly their public CV and they use it as a tool to apply for jobs, to get recruited for other jobs? Like, what's the main use case for LinkedIn? And how does their inbox in LinkedIn look like, right? And depending on that context, you need to learn how to compete within that context or stand out within that context, right? And then ask yourself, are they getting like hundreds of recruiting messages? So if I want to ping them, how do I make sure that they realize as quickly as possible that I'm not a recruiter and this isn't a recruiting message? Or if I am a recruiter and this is a recruiting message and I know that their inbox is full with other people like me, how do I make myself stand out? How do I get them to not pattern recognize, delete, or ignore me like they do all others, right? So I think being aware of the environment and the context of that environment is key. I think also that you need to invest in your LinkedIn profile when you're pinging me on LinkedIn, because one of the first things or one of the main things people will do is they will click on your profile in order to determine if they should pay attention to your message or believe your message, right? So if you write something that captures people's imagination, they might go, oh, let me click on this person's face, right? And then look at who they are and what their background is. So please have a LinkedIn profile that's up to date. Have a profile that has a really strong image. The image is part of your advertisement there. Have one that has strong connections. Have one that stands out in some way, right? So if you use that platform, LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile is the biggest advertisement you have. So don't just send me a message and assume I'm just going to read the words and make all my decisions without clicking on your name and checking out your profile. I think those are some of the basic things that I would keep in mind. And then I would honestly also, as a kind of a more recent trend, I would shy away from messaging people when they have recent events or changes happening. So a good example of this is when somebody just changes their job, you would think that's a great time to message them. On LinkedIn, unfortunately, right now, it's a terrible time to message them because LinkedIn prompts that change in career to everybody in this person's network. And so they'll get spammed by hundreds of messages that all say, congrats on the new job, congrats on the new job, congrats on the new job. So if you send them a message that says, congrats on the new job, I think now is the time for you to talk to me about my service, they'll never see that message. Like I did this as a fun experiment. I updated my LinkedIn profile and then I had like 800 messages saying the same thing. Do you think I went through all of them carefully and read them? I didn't. So in LinkedIn, it might pay off to message people a week after significant events versus just on the day, because that might be the noisiest time a year on people's LinkedIn inbox.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to iterate on that, with LinkedIn pushing their news feed or their equivalent of the news feed, I think it's a good way to. I think using that is just like a good way to engage. Maybe share an article, sh- make a blog post and tag them, or a post of your own and tag them. Comment on something they've said. Right? It's the same thing as if you were to be on Facebook or a blog post. Like get their attention. One thing I found that works really well is your tagline. Everybody can change their tagline. Usually people use their current position, but for example, if you're recruiting, actually I am just changing mine today. I'm recruiting a digital marketing manager for my agency, and so guess what I changed my freaking profile to? Hiring a digital marketing manager in LA. And what I'm doing is I'm viewing hundreds of people's profiles that I think are relevant, um, using a tool, and now I'm going to get inbound messages to me. So turn it around on them, right? Because people always like, the great thing about LinkedIn is people are like, who is this person that viewed my profile? I want to see it. Because you can only see three or four or five out of the hundreds, because they want you to pay, and most people don't pay. They're curious. So you use that. What you should not ever do is, and because this has been done to death, is if you've probably seen this. Somebody adds you, they're an outsourced development company, so they message you with some shitty email message, and then eventually they maybe even email you the same thing. Hey, I'm blah 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 from LinkedIn. You immediately ignore them because you're programmed to get spammed by outsourced development companies. So stand out. I think in the webinar you said a great example of like a new way to stand out. But I think get their attention on LinkedIn and then email them. But don't necessarily reference that because it's been played out. It's been done to death. Stelly, have you tried Facebook? Have you tried Facebook messages at all, doing outbound or like warm kind of outbound?
No, I mean, I've definitely used Facebook. I use Facebook more professionally, bless you, more professionally than personally. So I have used Facebook a lot to recruit people. I've used Facebook to ask for intros to people and to accomplish things from a business perspective. I've never really sent cold messages on Facebook. Because what Facebook does is that if I'm not friends with somebody and I send them a message, it goes into some kind of a secret inbox. They don't really necessarily see it. And the funny thing that I realized by my own example as well, but I surveyed other people, is that many Facebook users are not aware that this inbox even exists. Facebook is burying it away so much that people don't even know this exists. I even just learned about this like a year ago when somebody pinged me and then they called me and they told me, hey, I tried to get in touch with you on Facebook, but because you didn't accept my friend invite, I know that it went to your blah, blah, blah inbox. So you probably never saw that. That prompted me to go look at that inbox, and I was shocked. That inbox was full of a lot of trash, but also like invitations to speak at conferences, people that saw me speak at conferences that wanted to ask me questions, all these messages that I was completely unaware of, right? So that made me realize, wow, on Facebook, if you're not friends, chances are very low that people will realize that message that you sent them. So the first step is really to get them to accept the friend invitation. I've not really experimented heavily with it from a cold perspective, going to Facebook, friending people that I don't know, waiting for them to accept the friend, and then messaging them there. Have you experimented with that at all?
I've tried, yeah. I mean, I've kind of run into the same issues. So a couple things I've learned is one is it depends on the privacy settings someone has. So like my profile is blocked from the search engines, but completely open for anyone to see anything I've shared. You can message me, and it will likely go into my main inbox if we have friends in common. I don't know the exact numbers. They kind of play around with that algorithm. So if we have friends in common, it works really, really well. You could do the same thing where you ask somebody for an intro. If somebody I'm friends with, and then it's a group text, a group message, CCs me with someone else, it goes into my main inbox. So it's about getting in that main inbox. Like you said, most of the time it kind of goes into the ancillary stuff. But if somebody's profile is very private, they don't show any images or whatever, don't even bother messaging them. It's the same thing as like Twitter, right? Like how many DMs do you get that are not spam? Like 1 out of every 500, right? Maybe, right? I very rarely check it. I think most people don't. So if you DM somebody, if you send somebody a Facebook message, first of all, it should be a little bit more personalized. But maybe you email them and you let them know, right? Like, hey, sent you a link or whatever. And that's kind of cheeky too. So, generally for sales, don't use Facebook. Nobody wants to be. No, it's Facebook's job to avoid that stuff, so people use it. So there you have it.
All right, I think that concludes some of the most popular and most interesting questions that we had coming from the cold emailing webinar. We're going to link to it here as well. So if you want to watch the original webinar that prompted this little Q&A session, you'll be able to go and look for it. And if you have any questions, follow-up questions based on what we just said, you can send an email to either Sujin or myself or CC, both of us. Sujin, what's the best email to reach out to you for this?
Sujin@mailshake.com.
And for me, it's stelly@close.io.
Awesome, guys. And leave comments below. We'll make sure we answer as much as we can. And hopefully this prompts another round of cold email questions. Until next time, guys, take care.
Bye-bye.